9 years of marriage, 2 kids, a life that, to most people, might seem enviable. But I know better marriage isn't always easy, even when everything appears perfect. Every morning starts with the familiar sounds of my kids calling, "Dad, Dad." Their laughter as they see the breakfast I made, and the quiet hum of the coffee machine brewing in the kitchen. These little details, the small, ordinary moments, bring me a sense of peace, a simple kind of happiness that I've learned to treasure. I still remember the early days when my wife started her graduate program. She's a brilliant doctor, always pushing herself to go further. And I understood that meant long hours of study, research, and hospital shifts. I took on almost all the household responsibilities and childcare during that time. I told her over and over, "You focus on school and work. I've got everything else covered." And I did, without complaint, without hesitation. Our daily rhythm is steady. Mornings begin early. I make breakfast, help the kids get dressed, walk them to school. Then I return home to run my own business, handling orders, making calls, keeping things moving. I enjoy the flexibility of my work because it allows me to support the family financially and still be present for our kids. My wife, after dropping the kids off, dives into the hospital grind. She often comes home late, exhausted, yet she always manages a tired smile when she sees me and the kids. Dinner is a simple, comforting affair. We talk about our days, share small stories, and then we slowly wind down. It's a routine that feels calm, almost perfect, but nothing is ever truly perfect. About a year ago, things started shifting. My wife began going out with a new group of friends to couples, a few divorced individuals, and some people who had recently started new relationships. They're smart, highly educated, witty, and they have a type of humor I've never quite understood. The first time I went along, I felt immediately out of place. Most conversations were about work, research, mishaps, funny stories from their hospital and academic life, side jokes that only they seemed to get. I tried to listen, but within minutes, boredom and that sense of being out of place crept in. I laughed along, but deep down I knew I didn't belong. So I started staying home. I focused on the kids, cooking, chores, giving my wife the freedom to go out. I was upfront with her. "I don't really fit in with this group, but I want you to have fun." She understood. At first, it worked. She went out, I stayed home. Everything was fine, comfortable, predictable, but peace is fragile. The group started to nudge things along, not maliciously, but enough to create subtle pressure. They mentioned that the other husbands were showing up, that one of the women had a new boyfriend, and that it would be a little awkward if my wife went out without me. I felt a twinge of discomfort but stayed firm. I wouldn't force myself into a social situation where I didn't belong. Then came the day my wife asked me to try going out with them again. I agreed, partly because she wanted me there, partly because I wanted to support her. "Just one try," I told myself. "It'll be fine." That night, something unexpected happened. I actually connected with someone, the wife of one of the guys. We shared interests, movies, TV shows, anime. For the first time in months, I could talk freely, laugh naturally, and feel like I belonged, even if just for a little while. I thought to myself, finally, someone I can connect with. This will work. I'll have fun. She'll be happy. Everything's going to be fine. But from the very start, I noticed something off. My wife didn't look entirely relaxed. There was a subtle watchfulness in her eyes, a hint of unease behind her smile. I'd never seen her like that before. At first, I brushed it off, thinking I was overreacting. But over time, I realized this wasn't about MIT, it was about her feelings. After the gathering, back at home, the tension was tangible. She hesitated, then shared how uneasy she felt, slightly jealous, slightly insecure. I was a little taken aback. I never expected that simply chatting with someone in a social setting could trigger this reaction. I reassured her, I'm not close with her outside of this. I'm not doing anything wrong. But it didn't fully ease her worry. She asked me to limit my interactions with this friend, as if I was somehow threatening the security of our marriage. I was firm. I can't pretend to be someone. I'm not just to make you feel better. I'm not doing anything wrong, and I won't sacrifice my own enjoyment in the group just because of a social joke. I set a boundary clearly. She could decide whether to invite me or not, but she couldn't dictate how I behaved once I was there. Arguments came, tension lingered, but I held my ground. I started paying closer attention to small cues. Her glance when I laughed with the friend, the way she mentioned the gatherings, her slightly hesitant tone. I realized it wasn't about me or the friend, it was about her insecurities. I remembered the times the group had joked about me, married down about her choosing a husband with only a bachelor's degree, not pursuing further education. Another time, they called my conversation with the friend a playdate. Innocuous to them, maybe. But to my wife, these were little knives, wounding her confidence, making her feel exposed, making her worry that people were judging her choices. That night, as we sat together after the kids were asleep, I looked at her, yet still smiling faintly, and I understood that marriage isn't always a calm harbor. It can be a stormy sea where even small waves of social pressure, jokes, or misunderstandings can create turbulence. And to keep our balance, I needed to learn how to navigate it, not by avoiding reality, not by pretending, but by finding the line where I could be myself and still honor her feelings. I realized something crucial. Marriage isn't just about love or responsibility. It's about dialogue, understanding, boundaries, and acknowledging each other's emotions, no matter how complicated or unpredictable they might be. And I knew the days ahead would test us further. But for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face her, to face myself, and to face whatever storms lay ahead. It was a Friday evening, and I had mixed feelings about going out. On the one hand, I wanted to support my wife and spend time with her. On the other, I dreaded sitting through hours of conversations I couldn't relate to, inside jokes about hospital mishaps, academic follies, and graduate students who forgot to label their samples. But my wife seemed genuinely excited that I'd join her this time, and I could see how much it meant to her. That alone pushed me out the door. We arrived at the gathering, a cozy apartment not far from the hospital where she worked. The aroma of coffee mingled with the faint scent of takeout Chinese food someone had brought. Laughter echoed from the living room, and immediately I felt that familiar twinge of discomfort, the sense that I didn't belong. The men were talking about board exams for new doctors, grading policies, and an endless stream of research lab anecdotes. The women, including my wife, were all laughing along, throwing in comments, sharing nods that seemed like secret codes I could never decipher. I made my way to the side, sipping my drink and scanning the room, when I noticed her, the wife of one of the guys. She was sitting on the couch, casually leaning back, scrolling on her phone for a moment before glancing up. Something about her relaxed demeanor caught my attention. A simple, "Hey, how's it going?" started a conversation that would change the entire dynamic of the night. We started talking about movies, our favorite sci-fi shows, obscure anime, and classic films from the 80s. I realized, almost instantly, that she was my kind of person. Someone who didn't just nod politely while I spoke, but actually understood the references I made, laughed at the same jokes, and added her own insights in a way that felt natural. For the first time in months, I felt that sense of belonging that had been missing in these gatherings. I glanced over at my wife and noticed a subtle shift. Her smile seemed slightly forced, and there was a tightness around her eyes. I tried not to let it bother me, but I couldn't ignore it completely. I was having fun, really enjoying myself, yet there was an undercurrent of tension I couldn't shake. Every laugh, every shared reference with this new friend seemed to be quietly scrutinized by my wife at some point. I excused myself to get another drink, and my wife approached me. "Are you okay talking to her?" she asked, her voice almost whispering. I looked at her, slightly confused. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" She hesitated, then looked away. "I don't know. It's just, I don't know how I feel about it." And there it was, the first crack in what I had thought was an unshakable sense of trust and comfort. It wasn't jealousy born out of suspicion of infidelity. It was insecurity, subtle but sharp. I realized that this wasn't about me doing something wrong. It was about her feeling unsure of herself, and perhaps even threatened in some way, by the ease with which I connected to someone else. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I alternated between conversations with my new friend and making sure my wife felt included, occasionally checking in with her. I could feel her tension easing slightly when I laughed with her about a joke unrelated to my new connection. But there was a lingering awkwardness. I caught glimpses of her expression as I shared a laugh with the other woman, a mix of curiosity, unease, and maybe even guilt. Driving home later that night, the car was mostly silent. My wife's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white. Finally, she spoke. I didn't expect it to feel like that. I nodded, understanding her without needing more explanation. "I know," I said. "I didn't plan for it either. But I promise, nothing beyond tonight changes anything between us." She glanced at me briefly, her eyes betraying vulnerability. "It's just, I felt like I couldn't compete with her. Or maybe I felt like I didn't measure up." And suddenly, I understood everything. The subtle jokes about married down, the casual playdate remarks, they weren't really about me. They were about her. About how she saw herself in comparison to this other woman, and perhaps how she feared being judged. All the laughter and casual teasing from her friends had unwittingly touched a raw nerve, amplifying insecurities she hadn't voiced before. I reached over and held her hand. "Look," I said softly, "I love you. I've chosen you every day of the last 9 years. Nothing tonight changed that. You're not competing with anyone. You're my wife, and that's all that matters." She exhaled slowly, as if a weight had been lifted slightly, but the tension was still there, lingering, like smoke after a fire. Over the next few days, I reflected on that night. I realized that my connection with this new friend wasn't a threat, it was a relief. A small bubble of joy in an otherwise socially awkward setting. But I also understood why my wife had felt uneasy. It wasn't jealousy in the dramatic, cinematic sense. It was something subtler, deeper. Fear of inadequacy, fear of being compared, fear that somehow she wasn't enough. I knew we had to address it directly. Avoidance would only make the problem fester, and pretending nothing had happened would be dishonest. So one evening, we sat down again, just the two of us, after the kids were asleep. I explained what I felt that night, why I had enjoyed talking to this friend, and how it didn't diminish my commitment to her or to our family. She shared her feelings, to hesitation, insecurity, even a sense of embarrassment that she couldn't fully articulate. We realized together that this situation wasn't about anyone else. It was about us, about how we navigated boundaries, emotions, and trust. I could continue attending these gatherings if I wanted, but I also needed to honor her feelings. And she, in turn, needed to trust me, to understand that a friendship, even a new, easy one, wasn't a threat. This was our first real test. Not a fight, not a betrayal, but a challenge of understanding and communication. A reminder that in marriage, it's not just about love, it's about patience, empathy, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. Looking back, that night marked a turning point. I discovered that I could enjoy myself, that I could connect with someone naturally, without it threatening the foundation of my marriage. And I realized that my wife, while shaken, was willing to face her insecurities head-on, to communicate honestly, and to rebuild her confidence in our relationship. That one evening, that simple connection became a mirror reflecting more than just my own social comfort. It reflected the subtle cracks we all carry within ourselves, the vulnerabilities we hide, and the way love challenges us to be honest, not just with each other, but with ourselves. By the time we put the kids to bed the next night, we had established an understanding. Future gatherings would be handled on a case-by-case basis. I could choose to attend when it made sense, and she could express her comfort level without judgment. And, most importantly, we both committed to talking through uncomfortable emotions rather than letting them fester. I knew, though, that this was just the beginning. Navigating friendships, social expectations, and personal insecurities was going to require constant attention. But that night, for the first time, I felt hopeful. Hopeful that marriage could survive not just big crises, but these small, subtle challenges, the ones that sneak up in ordinary moments and test the strength of love, trust, and understanding. Because sometimes, the biggest storms don't come from external threats. They come from inside, from the delicate, often unspoken fears and insecurities we carry. And learning to face them together, that, I realized, is the real work of marriage. After that first gathering, I thought everything would go back to normal. I still went to work, took care of the kids, and spent time with my wife like before. But I gradually realized things weren't that simple. Her unease didn't disappear, it quietly built up in every glance, every passing comment, every subtle gesture. The following gatherings with her friends became a test, a delicate challenge where I had to consider every move, every expression. One evening, we went out again. I tried to tell myself, just enjoy it, don't worry about her watching every interaction. But the moment we walked in, I could feel the difference. She was tense, her smile slightly forced, and there were moments when she watched me talk to this new friend with a mixture of curiosity and concern. We sat down, and I started chatting with the woman again. This time, we discussed upcoming movies, some favorite comics and anime, and small everyday experiences I rarely shared. It was natural and fun, but I couldn't ignore my wife's gaze every time I laughed or reacted to a joke. There was a quiet tension that hovered, almost invisible to anyone else, but painfully obvious to me. Later, I leaned toward my wife and asked gently, "Are you okay?" She paused, then said softly, I don't like this feeling. You and her. You're too comfortable with each other." I closed my eyes briefly and took a deep breath. This wasn't explosive jealousy, it was a quiet, persistent insecurity. I knew that if it wasn't addressed, it could grow into something bigger. I tried to explain, "I'm just talking. We share interests. Nothing else." But she shook her head slightly. "I know, but I can't help feeling like I'm on the outside, like I'm not enough." And that's when I truly understood. It wasn't about my closeness with someone else. It was about how she perceived herself in that social circle, among highly educated, witty, and sharp friends. The old jokes about me being married down, or the playful playdate comments weren't really about me, they were about her. And now, seeing how easily I connected with someone else, she felt a subtle sense of competition, an unspoken comparison she couldn't escape. The following week at home was tense. Small questions, fleeting glances, and offhand comments carried the weight of unspoken worry. I realized the real challenge wasn't the gatherings themselves, but how we handled the emotions afterward, whether we faced them head-on or let them simmer in silence. Once again, after the kids were asleep, we sat down together. I said plainly, "I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I also can't pretend to be someone I'm not just to keep you calm. We need to find a balance." She looked at me, her eyes soft yet wary, and admitted, "I'm afraid people will see you and her as a closer pair, and I feel left out." I squeezed her hand, warmth spreading between us. "I get it, but you have to trust me. That doesn't change my feelings for you. We need to communicate, not doubt each other." She nodded, still hesitant. I realized then that not every insecurity could be solved instantly. Some took time, patience, and continuous understanding. At the third gathering, I tried a different approach. Instead of spending too much time with my new friend, I focused more on my wife. We laughed together at funny stories, shared work anecdotes, and I occasionally drew her into conversations she enjoyed. It helped ease the tension, though I could still see the flicker of unease whenever I exchanged a laugh with the other woman. Small gestures became tests, a shrug, a natural smile, a glance. These subtle currents could easily be missed by anyone else, but were intensely felt by us. I learned to notice them without overreacting, maintaining my authenticity while being sensitive to my wife's feelings. After a few weeks, we set an unspoken rule. I could attend gatherings, but spend more time with her. If she felt uncomfortable, we'd leave early or adjust the setting to make her feel safe. This was our first real compromise, not giving in completely, but creating a balance where both of us could feel comfortable and enjoy the evenings. Of course, it wasn't always smooth. One night, she finally said, "I hate this feeling. You're too happy with her, and I feel left out." I took a deep breath, keeping calm. "I understand. I'll try to balance it better. But I also can't give up my own joy just to make you feel safe. We need to find a solution together." She fell silent, her gaze heavy. I knew her insecurity hadn't vanished, but at least now she knew I was listening. I understood, and we were facing it together. That was progressed far more than ignoring it or letting misunderstandings fester. Through these gatherings, I learned a lot about marriage. Understanding doesn't mean giving in completely. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your own identity. Honest, continuous, and delicate communication is the only way to maintain trust. Her insecurities still existed, but they were out in the open, discussed instead of silently growing. I learned to differentiate harmless subtle tensions from real warning signs, to neither overreact nor ignore them, and in that process, I realized marriage isn't just about calm. It's about navigating small but complex challenges, those hidden currents beneath the surface. It's not about who's right or wrong, but about staying balanced, maintaining respect, and not letting fear or insecurity destroy trust. That night, driving home after another challenging gathering, I looked at my wife and smiled. "We're still okay, right?" She smiled faintly, not completely, but meaningfully. I knew there would be more nights like this, but this time we had emerged from a small storm with more understanding, more patience, and more love, and I knew the currents wouldn't disappear completely. But now we had learned to navigate them, rather than let them pull our relationship under. After many gatherings filled with subtle tension and undercurrents, I realized we couldn't continue the way we had been. Just surface-level conversations or temporary compromises weren't enough to ease my wife's anxiety. She needed to be understood, and I needed to be honest. So we decided that one evening we would sit down, just the two of us, and speak openly about what was in our hearts. After the kids were asleep, we sat on the sofa, the soft light from the table lamp casting a warm glow. The quiet space made it easier for both of us to open up. I started first. "I want us to speak honestly tonight. No avoiding, no pretending. I see your worry, and I also feel caught between my own joy and your feelings." She looked at me, her eyes glistening, and nodded slightly. "I know, I want to speak to, but I'm afraid of making you uncomfortable, or of you thinking I don't trust you." She took a deep breath. I feel like you're closer to her than to me, and I don't know how to face that." I held her hand, keeping calm, and said, "I understand. I want you to know that connection doesn't change my feelings for you. It's just a compatibility in interests. I have no other intentions, and I don't want you to feel replaced or distant." She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. "But I don't know how to stop feeling insecure. Every time I see you laughing with her, I wonder if I'm enough. I know it's irrational, but I can't control it." I nodded, realizing that insecurity isn't always logical. It comes from fear, from comparing oneself to others, from old jokes, and from invisible pressures from society or friends. I said, "I don't expect you to completely erase this feeling, but we can face it together. I will help, and you need to open up so I can understand how you feel." We began to set boundaries for future gatherings, not as rigid rules, but as a way for both of us to feel comfortable. We agreed that if one of us felt uneasy, we would speak up beforehand, and the other would listen and adjust. We would balance our time talking, pay attention to each other's reactions, and not pretend to be fine if we weren't. Honesty and sensitivity to each other's feelings became central. We also discussed how to interact with my kindred friend. I explained that I enjoyed talking with her, but it wasn't an outside relationship. There was no private messaging or social media stalking. If my wife wanted, I could limit certain interactions, but I also needed to enjoy the gatherings. She thought for a moment, then said she didn't want to forbid me, only that I understand her feelings and adjust if she seemed uneasy. I nodded, agreeing, and explained that my natural enjoyment didn't threaten her. The conversation lasted over an hour, but by the end we both felt relieved. No more quiet worries. No more scrutinizing glances. We had laid the foundation for a new way of communicating, based on honesty, respect, and sensitivity to each other's emotions. In the following days, we practiced these principles. At the next gatherings, I spent more time with my wife, watching her reactions, while still comfortably talking with my kindred friend. When she felt uneasy, we would leave early or adjust our seating so she could feel at ease. Rather than creating tension, these principles allowed us to enjoy the gatherings more. She gradually grew more confident, learning to trust me and realizing that outside social relationships didn't diminish her own value. One night, after a gathering, she said, "I feel lighter. You haven't changed, and I still feel close to you." I smiled, understanding that this was a significant step. We learned that marriage isn't about avoiding challenges, but about facing them together, communicating openly, and setting boundaries so both partners feel safe. I knew there would be more challenges ahead, but this time we had tools, honesty, sensitivity, and the ability to discuss openly. The undercurrents were still there, but now we knew how to navigate them, rather than letting them sweep our relationship away. Love is not just emotion. It's a skill, a daily choice, a process of learning to face fears and insecurities without hurting each other. After that honest conversation, my relationship with my wife slowly entered a new phase. The quiet anxieties and scrutinizing glances were gone, replaced by a sense of safety and trust that was growing day by day. We started approaching every situation differently, talking openly beforehand, sharing our real feelings, and paying closer attention to each other with a new kind of sensitivity. One Sunday afternoon, while taking a walk with the kids in the park, I noticed my wife laughing more, visibly relaxed when I interacted with friends. The sunlight filtering through the trees, the soft rustle of leaves, and the sound of children playing made everything feel gentle and easy. I took her hand and asked how she felt seeing me chat with my kindred friend, and she looked at me and said, "I see that you're still here, still you. I don't feel anxious like before." Those words were a relief, but also a reminder that trust is a process, not something that exists automatically. We realized that trust isn't just about believing words, it's about believing actions, about facing uncomfortable moments together, and about patiently listening without judgment. Over the next few weeks, we experimented with small ways to strengthen that trust. We started setting aside evenings just for each other, putting our phones aside and simply talking about the ordinary work, small daily moments, fleeting thoughts and feelings. We sent each other short, caring messages, sometimes just thinking about you, or how was your day. But even these simple gestures created a feeling of closeness and safety. My wife began to take more initiative in sharing her emotions. She no longer hid minor anxieties, and she stopped avoiding expressing when she was upset or uneasy. She learned to recognize her feelings, name them, and speak them aloud without fear of judgment. I, in turn, learned to be more sensitive, knowing when to comfort, when to just listen, and sometimes simply to hold her hand in silence. Each of these moments became a link, strengthening our bond. One night, sitting together on the balcony overlooking the city lights, she squeezed my hand and said, "I know I still feel worried sometimes, but now I feel safe with you beside me. I trust that we can face anything together." I smiled and replied, "I feel the same." Trust isn't something we're born with, it's something we build together. Every day, every small action contributes to it. We understood that strengthening trust isn't about one person doing it for the other. It's a two-way process. It requires patience, observation, and continuous understanding. Every small gesture, every honest word becomes a building block for a strong foundation in a marriage. Trust and security don't appear just because of promises. They grow when we feel cared for, respected, and truly understood. During this period, we also learned to identify potential challenges, awkward social dynamics, subtle pressures from friends or society, and to talk them through before small worries turned into bigger ones. We became more open, refusing to avoid uncomfortable issues, but also not allowing them to become sources of tension. Every gathering, every conversation became an opportunity to practice trust, to learn how to manage emotions, and to support each other. Love between us was no longer just a feeling. It had become a daily choice, the choice to trust, to care, to be honest, and to confront fears together. Each day, I found myself loving my wife more, not only because of emotions, but because of the way we faced insecurities together, creating a safe space where both of us could be ourselves. Trust was growing steadily, gently but firmly, like a young tree reaching for sunlight. Every challenge, no matter how subtle or unexpected, became a chance for us to become closer and stronger. From this stage onward, our relationship was no longer simply companionship in ordinary days. It became a true partnership, a team built on love, honesty, and mutual trust. And from these careful, meaningful steps, we realized that any challenge, subtle or sudden, could be overcome if two people learn to listen, understand, and walk side by side. The weeks following our effort to build trust seemed calmer, yet subtle challenges always lingered, reminding us that love and marriage are never something that simply exists on their own. One evening, we attended a party at a friend's house, and I realized that feelings of insecurity could still creep in, no matter how much progress we had made. My wife seemed slightly uneasy as I chatted with my kindred friend, a fleeting shadow of concern in her eyes. I recognized this as a crucial moment to put into practice what we had learned: sensitivity, honesty, and respect. Instead of avoiding the situation or I gently took her hand, smiled, and asked, "Are you okay? Do you want to step away for a bit?" She exhaled a sigh of relief, nodded, and we found a quiet corner in the living room. Together, we breathed, shared our feelings, and simply stayed present with each other. Those small moments became proof that even in challenging situations, we could maintain balance and safety for one another. Challenges didn't come only from social gatherings. They arrived through pressures we couldn't control: stressful work, financial worries, minor conflicts with family. Each time, we reminded ourselves that trust and love don't repair themselves. They require daily care through words and actions. We learned to say things like, "I'm stressed, but it doesn't change how I feel about us," and we truly listened when the other shared their worries. On another evening, sitting by the window watching the rain, my wife held my hand and admitted, "I know I can't completely get rid of my fears, but I want to learn to face them with you. I don't want those moments of questioning if I'm enough." I smiled, placed my hand over hers, and said, "Me too. We'll learn to face every insecurity, one step at a time." Together, we started introducing small challenges to practice trust. Sometimes I would spend longer talking with friends, while she observed her own feelings and shared any anxiety. Other times, she would go out with her friends without needing me to follow, and we would discuss afterward how each of us felt. Every experience felt like a practical exercise, helping us better understand boundaries, emotions, and how to support each other. Our love had evolved, was no longer just a feeling, but a commitment to persevere, to learn, and to adapt together. We learned to manage natural reactions of jealousy or insecurity, replacing them with observation, listening, and companionship. One evening, after a particularly stressful week, we cooked dinner together, chatting and laughing, finding joy in the simplest moments. She said, "I see that even when life is stressful, when we're together and understand each other, we can get through anything." I nodded, feeling clearly that growth in love doesn't come from peaceful days, but from how we face and overcome challenges together. During this time, we also learned to view external conflicts, noticing a casual comment from a friend, work pressure, or a financial strain not as threats, but as opportunities to practice trust and support. Each time we discussed our feelings, shared anxieties, and worked side by side to ensure both of us felt safe. The remarkable thing was that the more small challenges we overcame, the more we realized the true strength of love. It wasn't an instinctive emotion. It was something that could be trained, something that required daily choices. We learned to control impulsive reactions, to listen instead of arguing, and to see every moment of worry or insecurity as an opportunity to understand each other more deeply. One afternoon, sitting together on the couch by the window, watching our kids play, my wife held my hand and said, "I feel safer and more trusting now, not because I'm free from fear, but because I know we'll face everything together." I smiled, our eyes meeting, silently knowing that the growth of a marriage happens in these small yet profound moments that seem ordinary, yet have the power to connect to people in ways nothing else can. Part 6 marked a turning point. We weren't just learning to trust and listen, we were learning to grow together. Every challenge, subtle or obvious, had become an opportunity to strengthen our bond, to deepen love and trust. We understood that marriage isn't simply companionship, practice, growth, and a daily choice to love and respect one another. We realized that love isn't only about intense emotions in romantic moments. It's about patience, compassion, and the ability to overcome challenges together. It's the small moments, a hand held, a caring glance, a gentle word that builds the solid foundation for a lifetime. And through these careful, meaningful steps, we knew that no matter what challenges arose, whether social pressures, work stress, or hidden tensions within family, we could overcome them. As long as we listened, understood, and walked side by side. Life continued to move forward, but there was no more uncertainty or quiet anxiety. Every challenge, every small gathering, every pressure from the outside had become an opportunity to understand ourselves and each other more deeply. One weekend evening, we were invited to a small party with some old friends. The atmosphere was lively. Laughter and stories filled the room. Yet deep inside me, there was still a flicker of worry. Would my wife feel insecure as I talked to my kindred friend? The moment we walked in, I noticed her standing slightly behind me, eyes observing, cautious but smiling faintly. I took her hand, feeling the beat of her heart, and silently reminded myself, this was the moment to test everything we had built together. Instead of avoiding or over-explaining, I joined the conversation with friends while making sure to include gentle glances, small gestures, subtle reminders that I was always present for her. Gradually, she relaxed, her smile becoming natural, and I knew that trust had truly taken root in both our hearts. The party passed, and as we walked home through the quiet streets, the warm glow of streetlights stretching along the sidewalks, my wife leaned into my shoulder and said, "I feel at peace. I'm not worried anymore. I know you're here, and I feel strong enough to trust us." I kissed her forehead, feeling the warmth and reassurance of her words. "I feel the same," I replied. "Everything we've gone through, every challenge, every small moment has brought us here." That night, we sat together on the balcony overlooking the city lights, the distant hum of traffic below, reflections dancing on wet streets from the evening rain. We were silent for a while, savoring the deep sense of connection, holding hands in quiet intimacy. I said, "I've realized that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice we make every day. It's the ability to listen, to face fears together without causing harm." She smiled, eyes shimmering with trust and confidence. "I know now that I've grown. I no longer feel the need to control or worry excessively. I trust that we can overcome every challenge, big or small." Together, we reflected on the weeks that had passed, seeing how far we had come. No more scrutinizing glances, no more silent fears. In their place were trust, freedom, and joy in every shared moment. The true climax of our journey didn't come from words or gestures at parties. Alone it came from the deep, intimate moments when both of us faced fears and insecurities, yet maintained trust and companionship. One evening, after a long, stressful day at work, my wife opened up about her fear that one day my feelings might change. I listened, held her close, and said, "I understand, but I want you to know that my love doesn't change. It's built, nurtured every day, and I would never want you to doubt it." She closed her eyes, exhaled slowly, and gradually felt that my words weren't just promises, they were truth. Born from consistent actions and commitment, we realized that marriage isn't just about companionship during calm days. It's about facing and overcoming every challenge together. From small conflicts, social pressures, to deep, hidden fears. Each difficulty became a lesson. Each challenge was an opportunity to grow closer and stronger. That night, under the soft glow of our bedroom lamp, I looked at my wife and saw confidence, trust, and love reflected in her eyes. I understood that we had moved past the testing phase, grown together, and were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with love, honesty, and the deep sensitivity we had worked so hard to cultivate. We held hands, stepping into the future without fear or uncertainty. Only the unwavering trust in each other and in the relationship we had built together. Challenges might still arise, but now we knew how to navigate them without letting them sweep away our connection. And in the end, our love wasn't just surviving, it had matured, become enduring, and stronger than ever. Those moments from small gatherings, candid conversations, two exchanged glances full of trust were the clearest proof that marriage is a journey, a choice, and a daily effort. We knew that with trust, honesty, and love, we could face any storm and build a future together that is secure, fulfilling, and truly happy. After all the challenges, tensions, and subtle moments of uncertainty, our life began to enter an entirely new phase. Peaceful, yet not dull. Happy, yet not requiring perfection. Social gatherings, work pressures, and even small family conflicts no longer felt like sources of fear or insecurity. Instead, they became opportunities to practice trust, to enjoy life together, and to nurture our relationship with care and intention. One weekend morning, the whole family went to the park. I stood beside my wife, watching her radiant, confident, and relaxed as she played with our kids. I smiled, feeling deeply that the long days of tension, the serious conversations, and the small rules we had put in place, all of it had led to this result: a happy, close-knit, and stronger family. There were no more silent worries, no more scrutinizing glances. In their place were trust, joy in everyday moments, and a sense of freedom to be ourselves in each other's company. She turned to me, holding my hand tightly. I feel lighter and freer. I don't worry or fear anymore. I know we've faced everything together, and I feel confident in myself and in us. I smiled warmly, gratitude filling my heart. Me too. Every challenge has helped us understand each other more, love each other more. And I know we've become a team that nothing can break. We realize that happiness in a marriage doesn't come from grand events or poetic words. It appears in the small details: a spontaneous hug, a genuine check-in, a look filled with trust, or a quiet moment of listening without judgment. These seemingly simple gestures were the solid foundation of lasting, enduring love. Work and social pressures were still there, but now we had learned to balance our time, set healthy boundaries, and support each other when needed. When my wife needed her personal space, I respected it. When I needed to share my joys or frustrations, she listened. That balance didn't come naturally. It was the result of learning, practicing, and patiently growing together. On another evening, while the family gathered around the dinner table, I looked at my wife and saw in her eyes confidence, joy, and absolute trust. No more comparison or insecurity, only a sense of safety and happiness in the simple moments. I smiled, knowing that we had truly matured. We began creating small family traditions, weekend outings, dinners just for the two of us, heartfelt conversations without judgment. Each of these traditions became a bridge, reinforcing love, respect, and trust. Every small moment served as evidence of the strength of our relationship, showing that marriage is not just about feelings but also about effort, patience, and daily choice. The extraordinary thing was that this maturity and happiness did not come from avoiding challenges or eliminating risks. It came from the way we faced, understood, and walked through life together. Hidden tensions might still arise, but now we knew how to navigate them, flowing with life without letting them erode our connection. We learned that challenges do not weaken a marriage. Approached the right way, they strengthen and deepen it. One day, while preparing for a family trip, my wife turned to me, holding my hand. I feel happy and whole. I know we've overcome storms together and grown stronger. I trust that no matter what the future holds, we can face it together. My eyes glistened as I replied, I feel the same. Everything we've been through has shown me that true happiness comes from honesty, sensitivity, and patient love. We realized that marriage is a journey, not a destination. It requires effort, patience, and the ability to learn from every challenge. The ordinary moments: a hug, an exchanged glance, a caring question are what builds stability and long-lasting happiness. In the end, we knew that from small gatherings to work pressures and family challenges, we had learned to stand together. Happiness was no longer fragile or easily shaken. It was the result of genuine, mature love, strong enough to overcome any challenge, nurture a lifetime, and protect it. Our life now was proof that love and marriage are not just about intense emotions or promises. They are about growth, choices, patience, and the quiet, consistent acts of care that bind to people for life. And with that, we knew we could face anything together, our bond unbreakable and our family whole, secure and happy. Life continued steadily, but now we felt the difference from the years before. No more silent worries, no more subtle undercurrents shaking our minds. Instead, there was a deep, quiet peace, confidence, and a happiness that we had built together, step by step, through honest conversations, challenges, and moments of confronting our insecurities. Every morning, waking up to the smell of breakfast cooking, hearing the kids laugh and run through the house, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not everything was perfect. Work was still stressful, schedules were busy, and occasional minor arguments happened. But now, we handled everything with understanding, calm, and respect, without letting negative emotions take control. Every challenge became an opportunity to understand and strengthen our bond. The rules we had once carefully established had become natural habits. At social gatherings, I still talked with friends freely, but I always paid attention to my wife's feelings, ready to adjust if she felt uncomfortable. When necessary, we would step away briefly or change the interaction so that her emotions were protected. Trust had become our foundation, making every event lighter, more enjoyable, and more secure. We understood that marriage isn't about avoiding challenges, but about living with them, turning difficulties into opportunities to deepen understanding and love. One evening, after the kids were asleep, we sat on the sofa discussing our plans for the future, an upcoming family trip, ways to improve our home, personal interests that we each wanted to pursue. My wife held my hand, eyes shining in the soft light. I feel happy because we don't have to hide our emotions or pretend anymore. I feel your love and honesty every day, she said. I smiled, realizing that these quiet, ordinary moments, these heartfelt conversations, were the true foundation of a strong marriage. We also learned to nurture emotional growth, not just for ourselves, but for our children. When one of us was tired or stressed, the other became a safe harbor, without judgment or blame. When one of us was happy, that joy spread throughout the family. Gradually, we built a stable, emotional environment where every feeling was accepted, respected, and became a glue that held the family together. We applied the same principles with our children. Instead of imposing control, we encouraged them to express their feelings, speak their minds, and learn to listen to others, watching them grow up in a trusting, loving environment. I could see the contrast with my younger self, from anxious, insecure individuals. We had grown into calm, emotionally mature, and consciously loving parents. One day, while walking the kids after dinner, my wife turned to me, holding my hand tightly. I feel that through all the storms, we didn't just survive. We grew stronger. Our love isn't just a passing emotion, it's a choice, an effort, and a commitment, she said. I looked into her eyes, feeling deeply moved. I feel the same. We've learned to grow together, build happiness together, and I know no challenge can separate us. We realized that marriage is an ongoing journey. It's not just about serious conversations or rules we once set, but about practicing them every day in the smallest details. A thoughtful check-in, a spontaneous hug, a caring glance, or just being present together in silence. These details create a resilient relationship where happiness is no longer fragile but strong enough to withstand external pressures. Day by day, we discovered how to create small but lasting joys. We shared personal interests while still dedicating time for each other and the family. Meals, walks, and playtime with the kids became precious moments that reinforced our connection and nurtured love. We understood that happiness is not something that comes naturally or temporarily. It is the result of conscious choices, effort, and honesty every day. Finally, Part 9 closes with the image of our family gathered together in the living room, the children's laughter filling the house, and a gaze full of trust and love shared between my wife and me. We had built a foundation of mature love, where every challenge was faced together, every emotion understood, and happiness became enduring, profound, and strong enough to last a lifetime. Hidden tensions, worries, or challenges may still appear, but now we know how to navigate them with patience and resilience, keeping love and family safe, secure, and complete. Time moved on, and our lives gradually settled into a steady rhythm. Social gatherings, work pressures, and family stresses were no longer sources of anxiety or insecurity. Instead, they became opportunities for my wife and me to practice trust, sensitivity, and partnership. We understood that happiness wasn't something that arrived naturally or existed only in fleeting emotions. It was the result of conscious choices, consistent effort, and honesty exercised every single day. One late afternoon, the whole family went for a walk around the neighborhood. Our kids ran freely, their laughter echoing across the quiet streets, and I held my wife's hand, feeling an incredible sense of calm. She looked at me, her eyes shining in the soft light of the setting sun. "I know that we've weathered every storm together," she said gently. "I feel confident in our love and in myself. You've shown me that joy, freedom, and happiness can coexist without threatening our relationship." I smiled, sensing happiness in every small detail. A gentle squeeze of her hand, the warmth of her presence, the shared understanding in our gaze. We sat down together later, reflecting on the journey we'd been through, the worries, the uncertainties, the candid conversations, and the small but crucial rules we had created to protect one another. Each challenge, each hidden tension, now looked like a valuable lesson. We realized that it was precisely by facing our emotions head-on and being honest with ourselves and each other that our love had grown deep, resilient, and mature at social gatherings. I could converse freely with friends, but always with awareness of my wife's feelings. She no longer worried or monitored my every action. Instead, she trusted the relationship and felt confident in it. We had learned how to accompany each other while retaining our individuality, how to love without controlling, and how to grow together while enjoying life's moments. We also learned to cultivate small, lasting joys within the family, shared dinners, weekend trips, playing games with the kids, reading together in the evenings, or simply talking about our day. These moments created a safe emotional environment where our children could learn to love, understand, and express themselves confidently. Watching them grow happy, independent, and appreciative of family bonds, I could see that every effort, every challenge, and even past struggles had built a solid foundation for the future. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, we sat together on the balcony with cups of tea, looking out at the city lights. She turned to me softly. "I feel happy because you are not only my husband, but also my partner and emotional support. We've learned to understand, love, and grow together." I held her close, feeling the warmth spread through me. "I feel the same way. Our love is no longer just a fleeting feeling. It's a choice, the result of every effort, every moment we dedicate to each other." We reflected on every challenge we had faced, the anxieties, the honest dialogues, the small rules we put in place to protect one another. All of it had become the building blocks of a resilient relationship, making our love mature, deep, and enduring. Hidden tensions, worries, or societal pressures might still arise, but now we knew how to navigate them with patience and steadiness, keeping love and family safe, happy, and complete. We began planning for the long-term future, extended family trips, the children's education, home improvements, and personal projects we each wanted to pursue. Every plan was made with mutual agreement, respect, and consideration of each other's feelings. We understood that marriage isn't a one-way journey, it's a continuous partnership, requiring flexibility, understanding, and sensitivity to each other's emotions. Finally, Part 10 closes with the image of our happy family together in the living room, the children laughing and playing. My wife giving me a look full of trust, and me realizing that everything we had gone through, the challenges, the honest conversations, the small rules, the worries we once carried had led to a mature, profound, and enduring love. This wasn't just an ending. It was a new beginning journey to continue nurturing happiness, love, and growth, facing the future with confidence, peace, and fulfillment. In my mind, a quiet thought emerged. Marriage isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about walking through them together. And we had learned the greatest lesson. True love is honesty, sensitivity, patience, and choosing to walk together every single day. In moments that may seem ordinary but are profoundly meaningful.